Hello, and welcome back to DSU's continued win streak. At least that's what I hope to be saying at the end of this night. So far, DSU hasn't lost yet. It's been phenomenal performances all around from all 5 members of our varsity team, and we're looking to keep it going. This game will be against NDSU, which, if I remember from last season, had quite a strong team. So we might be up for some more contests here, but I could be wrong. We'll see. Hopefully, it'll be a whole bunch of good games tonight. That's the goal with this. We should be getting into games sometime soon, but until then, I'll just be talking to you guys about some of our expectations for this game. We're probably going to be seeing a lot of contesting picks for the usual. The meta hasn't changed much so far, so we'll still be looking at very contentious Maokai picks, most likely. A lot of bans aimed at the bottom side of the map, or maybe top. We'll see. You see that occasionally in these games so far. Usually the bans will be lopsided on one lane just to try and get the prio up, but it really depends. We'll see how the draft goes. But yeah, I really am expecting Maokai to be in high contention here. Other than that, probably Kassadin and Rise in the mid lane, and then as for ADC, that really varies with the team. We see a lot of Ashe Heimerdinger from DSU, which is a combo I love to watch and hate to play against. So it really just, I'm excited to see how DSU drafts, because all of our drafts this season have been phenomenal. Just really, I feel like we've taken the advantage pre-game every time, essentially. I think DSU just has really clean strategies for the draft, especially when they have blue side, as having that first pick gives them a lot of contention. You get a strong pick, but when you have the double pick, it also gives you the ability to kind of pressure yourself with a strong bot lane or a strong mid jungle duo. So yeah, I am excited to see how it goes. We should be getting into draft really soon here. I see it coming up here, but it hasn't quite started yet. Oh, right. The Aurelian Soul rework has shifted the mid lane meta quite a bit. I'm getting word, something I didn't know. It'll be banned as for these games. So yeah, if we see an Aurelian Soul pick, it'll be our last glimpse at the old man himself. But as for just general in terms of the rework, he seems pretty strong. Really unique kit has been added in there. Not quite as unique as the stars, in my opinion, but I really like how he feels more godly, which I think Riot was going for with that rework. I definitely would say he's gotten stronger, and his ult is super cool, seeing that thing burst around the entire map. I can't wait to see him in these games. I'd love to cast a reworked Aurelian Soul. And maybe next week. We will see. I think if he's available, if he's left unbanned, he will be picked, unless there's some other ridiculously strong mid laner that pops up. And knowing the League of Legends meta, always possible. As for champions that I'd be excited to see tonight, Heimerdinger Ashe, which I've already mentioned, as well as Maokai, Kassadin, which is always fun to watch Crimson Samurai work with that on his comfort pick, and we get into draft with an immediate Heimerdinger ban from NDSU. Sad to see, but it's smart. If you take one look at DSU's competitive strategies, Heimerdinger is almost always a central component of it. He just brings so much control with that, with his turrets, and his powerful threat from his ult W. Amumu ban coming out from DSU. You see Amumu quite a bit. He's always a powerful engaged jungler, super threatening in the team fights because he always has the threat of the ult that amplifies the amount of damage everyone takes and stuns everyone in its radius. Victor coming down. Victor is another very comfortable pick for DSU's mid laner Crimson Samurai, and they clap back with a Azir ban, which I'm sure is another comfort pick for NDSU's mid laner, although I can't say that with the utmost confidence. NDSU's ban is back up, and they choose to ban Annie. Makes sense. I think she's the highest win rate mid laner right now in terms of just numbers. And Annie was just played in the LCK. DSU using their final ban of this first phase. They're thinking really hard about this one. And it comes out as Shen. Shen, I think, is really strong, especially in these coordinated 5v5 games, because obviously with his global supporting ultimate, anyone on his team can get it whenever they're in trouble. It really brings pressure down from the top lane everywhere else on the map. So I really like the Shen ban. As well as he just has a very strong laning phase. Maokai has been left open for blue side, but they go for Sejuani, who I think has a little bit more team play than Maokai, so I would say that's smart. Maybe just purely in these 5v5s, you see that being a more optimal pick. DSU's turn to pick 2 champions in return. And I'm concerned about what this might be, because a lot of the more comfortable or strong picks have been banned right out of the gate here. So DSU's looking for secondary options, and they do bring out the Maokai. That leaves them in kind of an awkward place here for their second pick, because obviously you can't do ADC support first and second pick because Maokai's already in there, and you don't want to leave the counter pick available for top lane or mid lane. Although it could be a Sejuani top if they flex it that way. And they come up with Lulu support. I think that's also smart. It's the most, it's the hardest to counter pick role in the game, just because of how versatile and not as much influence in how the lane's progression goes as the ADC. So that's kind of, I think, what they're going for here. Lulu very good with high attack speed on hit 80 carries, so I'm expecting to see a good combo with that coming out from DSU. NDSU with their second and third picks bringing out Kai'Sa. Very strong ADC right now, especially at shredding tanks like Maokai. So I think that's a good pick. Especially when you don't know what the enemy ADC is. With that ult and the ult and the massive shield that it brings, as well as the mobility, Kai'Sa is very safe. So even if she does get hard counterpicked and brought into a losing matchup, she's still fairly able to just keep herself in the game. But they're going aggressive. NDSU taking out the Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank is a pain to play against at all times because you have to keep an eye out for his hook. His ability to just drag someone halfway across their screen over to himself is always a massive threat from level 1 to level 18. So I'd expect DSU to pick something safer to contend with the super aggressive lane. Maybe a Kog'Maw, maybe an Ashe, even Caitlyn. And I come up with Zeri. Zeri, very long range, but she also has that ability to capitalize on Lulu's damage and get in there if they do happen to win this lane. I think that's super versatile. Back into the ban phase here. We're seeing fairly normal drafts here, with both sides having picked their junglers and their bottom lanes. Ornn ban. I think Ornn provides a lot of value late game with his tankiness and then ornaments. So that's a good ban if you're not going to pick it yourself. We're going to see bans mostly lopsided for top here, maybe some for mid. NDSU is looking to put pressure on mid lane with the Vladimir ban. Another comfortable pick for Crimson. In these ban phases, you always see Crimson put in a tough spot because his performance has been the most volatile and scary for the enemy team consistently throughout the seasons. So you see Victor, Annie, Vladimir all come out, putting him in a tough spot for picks. And DSU focuses more bans on the top lane with Darius going out. Darius, super aggressive, super strong early game. I like that as a ban. Just because once Darius gets his snowball rolling, as I'm sure most of you know, it does not stop rolling. As well as bringing all of that armor shred into the game to further cut through Maokai. NDSU capping off the ban phases with a Swain ban. That's interesting to me. You've seen that picked a couple times from DSU, but I wouldn't say it's one of the big prio bans to get in there. So that one somewhat confuses me, but I see where the logic is coming from. DSU's pick is up, and I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe a top lane pick here. Maybe a top lane pick here. It also could be mid lane if they have a pick they really want, but Cassante comes out. Fuyu, DSU's top laner, has been playing Cassante quite a bit in these competitive games. You've seen him pull out some nasty fights on Cassante and come out on top when you really wouldn't expect him to. So I'm kind of surprised NDSU didn't look to ban that, but when they're focusing all of their bans on the Heimerdinger and the rest on mid lane, it's kind of hard to find a spot to pick that in. NDSU counterpicks the Cassante with Camille, very good at shredding through tanks with her percentage max HP true damage. Always a threat. But Cassante, I think, can win it. It just depends on how patient each player is with their abilities in the laning phase. NDSU's final pick is Syndra in the mid lane. I think that's a good balancing act for the rest of their team. You have the engage from Camille and Sejuani, the lockdown that lets Blitzcrank and Kai'Sa do their thing, and Syndra's always laying down the consistent damage and the heavy burst with her ultimate to cap it off. DSU's been given a mid lane counter pick here, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Crimson try and take full advantage of it, although it's going to be hard to wiggle in a good pick here through all 4 bans. DSU made a little bit of a mistake here on the pro draft. I'm sure they'll fix that up. They'll pick that up again in a second here. Anivia has come out. Okay. I like that. Anivia, I actually am unfamiliar with the Anivia Syndra lane, but I wouldn't be surprised if it were Anivia sided just because of Syndra's lack of mobility and very light disengage would make it hard to get off of an Anivia wall, especially when it's followed up with a gank. But Syndra, I would say, has more burst damage with her quick combo, especially if she follows it up with an ult, while Anivia brings that big sustain, which I like with the Maokai lockdown and the Blitzcrank pull. If she can get her Glacial Storm down and get it shredding through an enemy, Anivia's damage is almost unrivaled in the mid lane. It's super sustained and super deadly, and Anivia has very good farming with her autos and her E. So I'd expect to see Crimson play for opportunities here. He wouldn't be super aggressive in lane, although knowing him, he just might take this pick and soar with it. No pun intended. As for the bottom lane, Kai'Sa Blitzcrank will definitely take prio early, just with the powerful engage from Blitzcrank hook. But Zeri is safe enough with her long-range Q to farm minions and her dash to help her dodge hooks, as well as even if she gets caught, Lulu Polymorph and Shield should get her out of there, should she have her E up to dash through a wall. So I wouldn't be surprised if bot lane were just Kai'Sa and Blitzcrank looking for an opportunity to start the snowball in the lane, and Lulu and Zeri waiting for a gank, maybe, to try and win that in their favor. In the jungle, we see Maokai and Sejuani, 2 tanky engage picks, both with a lot of synergy with their teams. Sejuani takes the advantage in terms of team play, but Maokai takes the advantage in terms of just pure stats. He definitely brings out more to the table in terms of just how much damage he can take, how much damage he can deal, and how much pressure he brings. I think this draft is fairly even, maybe a little DSU-sided, especially if this one gets into the late game. But it's definitely one of the more even drafts we've seen. This one definitely is a skill matchup here. What I found super impressive from DSU is the Zeri pick. I think it's super creative because Zeri, you don't see her a lot, but she's always been like a strong power pick, except for when she was really bad when she first came out. She brings so much versatility in terms of just mobility, damage, and CC, with her W being a solid slow. So when you look at Zeri Lulu, she definitely has the ability to put down damage from Lulu's picks from her E, I believe it is. Just lets you get that repeated damage through and through and through. Zeri Q being very spammable. And I don't think Blitzcrank will do much dying this lane just because of pure tank stats. But Kai'Sa, fairly vulnerable if you can get through her ult and maybe any defensive summoners she has left, like Exhaust or Heal. If you can do that, she's easy pickings if Zeri can get on top of her, and Blitzcrank is too far away to peel off with his knockup. But again, one Blitzcrank hook and the lane could be over, really. Another thing that I really liked from DSU was the Ornn ban. I think it was super smart to ban Ornn because they didn't have him in their draft, but Ornn could bring up the NDSU's late game with his upgraded mythic items. And with DSU posturing for 25 minutes and beyond to take this game, the gold value added from Ornn could be devastating to that. Maybe get them up and running way later or not at all. But from NDSU, you see a lot of bans just focused on individuals. They're not banning based on the meta outside of their Annie ban. They're looking at Heimerdinger, at Swain, at Vladimir, and at Victor, just looking purely at who on their team does the best on what, and then taking that away from them. DSU is good at playing it like that, under that draft pressure, because they always resort to the meta if they feel like they have to. So I feel like that was kind of wasted bans from NDSU, but understandable bans. I would rather give someone a comfort pick that I feel like I can probably work around than just some massively overpowered meta champ at the moment. But at the end of the day, you're in a tough spot with that one. Because if you do hand over the comfort pick, you're in a rough spot in the lane, unless you can also play something with equal worth. Back to the K'Sante Camille lane in the top lane. Honestly, I'm super interested to see how that plays out, because K'Sante can definitely match Camille's damage when he goes all out in his ult. But I think he's definitely at a damage disadvantage, and he's not as safe as you'd like to be against something like Camille E into ult. Camille is super dangerous, even against tanks, because she just treads through a flat percentage of your HP. So K'Sante, maybe not the safest pick, but definitely the strongest. If K'Sante can get his hands on Syndra or Kai'Sa and then lets the blades out, they're done. They're done, especially with Fuyu behind the wheel on that one. He's pulled off some stuff you wouldn't imagine. Essentially doing Lee Sin insects with K'Sante ult, trying to get someone way far away from their own team, which is always fun to watch. Sacred Conviction on Zeri, I've seen it once or twice personally off stream, and I think it's been impressive. Definitely one of the more mechanically difficult ADCs, just trying to manage always hitting your Ws, when to hit them through walls and when to dash through walls or just to use it. Having to land your auto attacks without just having the game auto aim them for you, especially with all the speed she gets from her ult. So high skill ADC, maybe not the highest skill, but with Sacred piloting her, I have all of the faith in the world. He's a super solid ADC player. Maokai, not as mechanically difficult as the likes of Maokai, or as the likes of Anivia, Zeri, K'Sante, but the timing is difficult on Maokai. You always have to know when to W in, because while you're Wing to them, you're out of control, right? Yeah, there's nothing you can do should they flash under their turret or take a Thresh Lantern out, and Maokai just soars right into the pits of hell with that one. So always knowing where you could end up on Maokai. It's a lot of macro think, personally, with Maokai. You know, you're just throwing out saplings, queuing, Wing, and then ulting just right down a lane. But you have to understand the timing of it all. When to approach, when to do what, and where to do it. Maokai is a stat stick for sure, but a stat stick that you need to know when and where to apply, which I think is where the skill comes down here with him, especially with just his kit in particular. You see something similar with Sejuani, but she's less dedicated. Her big engage being her ult is a ranged stun, right? So she doesn't have to follow it up with anything. Should that go bad, her big CC, she can stop committing to, which I think advocates for her team play over Maokai, just because of how much more versatile she can play around that. But if that lands, a quick follow-up with Hextech Ultimatum, Camille's ultimate, could definitely be a death sentence for any squishier target that's caught out. When with the spectator delay up, we should be getting into game any second now. But I am impressed with NDSU's draft. I think that is a good indication of how interesting this game can be. Goalkeeper Blitzcrank looking like he's from a different game than everyone else, of course. It's a 2012 game. And we get in. I'm interested to see how both teams play around a level 1 Blitzcrank. It's always interesting. Blitzcrank always wants to look to get up somewhere and look for an early hook, maybe get first blood right off the bat. And both teams need to be super careful of it. If either team forgets to play properly around it, it could be big losses for both sides. DSU going for a classic counter-invade 5-stack, although it seems to be a bit misplaced. Blitzcrank posturing for the other side of the map, maybe just looking to get a pick here if he sees someone from DSU walk up, but they're onto him. So if NDSU gets a little bit too big for their britches, if they come down to the bottom side to look for something else, it could definitely be a death for anyone who's the closest, which would most likely be Blitzcrank. And they do start looking for things, just getting a quick vision in the Raptor pit. But nothing comes of it. That's just what happens sometimes. Blitzcrank picks a side, everyone else picks another side, and well, that's it. Nothing happens. But both sides get good vision, good information, and we're still looking at an even game. Both junglers starting on their bottom camp. It's fairly traditional, you see it all the time. Although Cassante taking a bit of a longer path to lane just to ward the red buff is smart. You don't see that a lot, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. And the laning phase is off. Everyone's in their proper positions, looking for the slightest advantage to take. Cassante always has good farming potential, basically having Yasuo Qs. An immediate skirmish comes out in the top lane. And the bot lane is just looking for poke. Blitzcrank always posturing to try and get on the same side of the wave as the ADC. It's just a constant back and forth that happens all the time. Close shave from the Lulu with the Blitzcrank hook. And we see NDSU take a health advantage on the top side, DSU fighting to get it back. And an all-in, a very early fight from DSU, goes a little bit poorly. A lot of summoners just got exchanged, and first blood goes to the Blitzcrank through the Ignite. Blitzcrank lands another very clean hook, and that's an immediate double kill for NDSU's bot lane. Crimson already on fairly low HP, but he does have the Anivia passive to buy him out of any unfortunate scenario he may find himself in. Top lane, back to even. Cassante can always just heal through any poke with Grasp, but Camille obviously slaps back with the same amount of healing from the same rune. And man, just based on the looks of these first laning phases, it's not going great for DSU. Definitely not unsalvageable. We're seeing Fuyu try and take something top lane, but with that big of a wave against him, not much he can do for that. As a big wave crashes, and top lane is completely incapacitated. Sejuani posturing to get a Scuttle Crab, while Maokai is still clearing his red. Definitely leads for another gold advantage for NDSU. We're back in the bottom lane. Oh, Cassante takes a brief health advantage here, but Sejuani's wandering up, forces a flash out. That's understandable. Maokai's here for the follow-up, but they know he's there. Could happen anytime here, a big skirmish in the top lane, but both sides are probably looking to disengage with that. DSU's bottom lane just trying to look to keep up and farm, try and minimize the gold loss that they took from that early fight. And Blitzcrank, I don't think posturing his power as forward as he should be. Just like that with that hook, now he should back off, right? But while he has it up, he's always a constant death sentence for DSU. So I would take more advantage of that in the future for him. But we'll see. Syndra landing a solid stun, getting her a good health state advantage. Blitzcrank looks for a hook, and it's just short. Pretty clever Hex Flash play there, but it doesn't quite work out. DSU's onto them like Sherlock Holmes. Maokai's here, looking for something, looking to take this lane back into DSU's hands, and it looks like it's going to be at least one kill. The cleanse comes out from Kaisa, looking to survive, and she just might do it with some good body blocks. Maokai has to flash, but they secure it. They're posturing for Blitzcrank now. He's just gets under tower when Zeri takes him out. Now, Zeri got both of those kills while Kaisa only got one, so that immediately shifts the balance back in DSU's favor. Thank you to Tank Eyes. And we see one gank on each side for each jungler. One successful, one extremely successful, one somewhat successful. We see another 2v2 possibly happening here in the mid lane as Camille maintains her topside pressure. Wow. I'm surprised to see Fuyu trying to take even those little trades, wandering out of his tower while Camille has the level 6 advantage. It's ballsy, but I think he knows his distance well enough to be able to work with that properly. Good wave management from Camille here. Looking to recall while a big wave is crashing. Always like to see that. Blitzcrank securing vision. And now we're back to a fairly neutral game here. Both sides just trying to clear their camps, get their minions, and which is good for DSU. Obviously, having their hands on the mid game, late mid game and late game, they're just looking to get by here. So NDSU sweating, trying to get their lead back. We're seeing an almost exactly even gold lead here, or gold charts here for each side. Which you don't see a lot here. You at least see some variation in those numbers. Normally, with the Infernal Drake up and ready, NDSU having bought Prio could get that for them. Lulu briefly getting caught out by a hook, but I think she survives it even through the Ignite. And NDSU's bot lane has hit level 6. Again, providing a big threat in an all-out fight. Especially with this dragon up, I think that's not good for DSU. But they should be more than willing to give this first dragon if they have to. But it looks like they're not willing to do that right off the bat. They're going to make NDSU force them into it if they want this dragon. As we see the fairly neutral game continue in the top lane, both teams posturing heavily for this dragon here. With DSU securing the Scuttle Crab, that's a good vision advantage right outside of pit. There's no sneaking a dragon, hardly no sneaking a dragon when there's Scuttle Crab up. Both ADCs just trying to outfarm each other. I wouldn't be surprised if Sacred wasn't very far off of level 6 here, which is kind of necessary for him to hit in order to swing this fight in DSU's favor. Sejuani looking for more vision. Oh, I would have been so happy if that Anivia wall stopped her from getting the ward. I'd never seen anything like that before. Yep, and Zeri does hit level 6, which provides her good team fight pressure. She's constantly just stacking stacks, speed and damage. Which I definitely think provides more of an advantage just at level 6 than Kai'Sa's ultimate does in a front-to-back team fight. Maokai looking to get a bot lane gank here, but with DSU pushing in, it may not happen. Sejuani looks top side, maybe looking to trade a dragon here, as a bot lane gank comes down, and Blitzcrank just barely doesn't fall to it, but it forces a teleport into the bot lane and a flash from Syndra. Just barely, neither side gets much there. Top lane is pushing in as Sejuani looks for a gank, doesn't work out. And DSU starts the dragon, trying to get through this while they have a brief advantage with Blitzcrank in their base, in NDSU's base. And it looks like, with little contention from NDSU, DSU takes the first dragon, which could end up being a death sentence for NDSU later if they can get the second, third, and fourth. And wow, it's just a consistent neutral game up here. Top lane is an island, and that's the result of it. Neither lane influenced too much. And we see plates go for DSU. Blitzcrank looks for a hook. Sacred cleanly dodges it. Always playing mind games against Blitzcrank, trying to make him think you're going to dodge in one direction and then dodging the other. And we see Kai'Sa takes her first mythic, a Kraken Slayer, which I think is a good first item to take into DSU's comp. And we see that she does have a brief gold advantage over Sacred. But with DSU having more summoners up in the bottom lane, they could definitely still take that fight. With a big wave in the top lane, I wouldn't be surprised to see something happen here, at least taking some health advantages. And DSU taking more plates to even out the odds in the bottom lane. We see DSU fall slightly behind in gold, about 500. But that's only expected in scaling comps like this one. You definitely... being only that far behind really shows how well you're doing when your whole goal was to just survive. So, with the junglers on opposite sides of the map, pressure is split, and with no objectives up, it's really just looking for lane ganks. I would say most of the pressure is on bot lane here, which gives NDSU a bit of an advantage with Sejuani closer there. And with mid lane shoved in, there's not much you can look for there for Maokai, and with Camille being so safe, I would doubt a gank like that from the middle of the lane can get to her. Blitzcrank going for sneaky bush plays. DSU's going to be onto him, but Sejuani's there to back it up. Zeri looks like she's in trouble, but she's not. Parkouring right over that waterfall, getting back to her turret to safety. With NDSU shoving in and a cannon alive, losing this wave could be devastating for DSU, so they're really looking to keep it to stop a dive from happening. But with Sejuani backed, there's not much they can do there. A level advantage for NDSU in the mid lane. And with Anivia having ult, she's the wave clear queen. I doubt to see many waves shove into her turret. Blitzcrank looking for something in the middle lane. Does he get anything? No. A super good dodge from Crimson here. Blitzcrank has to wander all the way back. While Kai'Sa is gone, possibly giving DSU an opportunity to take another plate. Wow. Blitzcrank coming around the river, but with not much backup for him on the way immediately. Sejuani and Kai'Sa looking to get in there. If DSU stays here, they could be in a bit of trouble, but their spider sense is tingling and they're going to fall back. Ooh, I wasn't paying much attention to the mid lane, but we do manage to catch out Syndra. Another good gank from Maokai with his instant W lock on. And it's a big fight here in the bottom lane. Tankai's falls first. Without the Maokai, DSU falls to a disadvantage, but Zeri has started her ult and is beginning to stack. She flashes in to keep it going. NDSU on the back foot with Blitzcrank at low health. Kai'Sa is the next to go down with Blitzcrank quickly following her. Wow, what an exchange. Surprisingly, DSU sided, even though they lost their jungler right off the bat. That's the team fight pressure I was talking about with Zeri. And, yep, we are back to the top lane, where I'm sure things are happening, but it's got to be pretty boring for both laners up there. We do see Fuyu take a brief level advantage, though, which shows that it's going his way, more so. Over this battle of attrition in the top lane, he is slowly but surely taking the lead. Even not in health, but definitely in scaling, which could definitely turn into something should the pattern keep going. Both junglers going back to their normal clears, so we should see fairly neutral games here for the next minute or so. But with the dragon up, that could change very quickly. Blitzcrank, having a very powerful position here in the river, he could always look to just pull someone right in there and instantly with that pick, giving NDSU the dragon. They start it, but quickly back off. Blitzcrank preparing a Hex Flash, and he pulls it off. Taking Kai'Sa's flash. Maokai does just barely manage to get out, but being at that low health, they know he has to recall back to their base. And with Maokai having the one with Smite, having Smite, that's kind of a ticket to ride here for NDSU. They do start the Mountain Dragon, which could have been really bad for them to have on DSU with Maokai and Kasante's tankiness. Now they give Sejuani and everyone else a little bit of a boost. DSU could be posturing to trade and snag the second Rift Herald for themselves, which I would like to see. Blitzcrank walking up with dangerous amounts of pressure, just barely not landing the hook, just tickling Lulu. And DSU's control ward forces them off of that bush and having the prio there. A super strong position for Blitzcrank denied, at least temporarily. We see a bit of a skirmish start here in the mid lane. It's another 2v2. A lot of ults coming down here, a lot of CC. Ooh, Syndra falls to a heavy chunk of burst from Anivia. And Sejuani should be soon to follow. But Camille here, looking to clean it up, and a Blitzcrank hook comes down. A lot of stuff happening all over the place, but Zeri is confident. Sacred knows that he's stronger here and will punish NDSU for trying to get slick on them. And we do see DSU try and take the Rift Herald. It's a bit of a catastrophe losing a Mountain Dragon in their comp, so they're trying to make up for it by getting this objective, which they do manage. Probably the Scuttle Crab coming up with it. And DSU takes the first turret bot lane. This could definitely be the start of something. With that Rift Herald probably going to be used to take another second tier turret. Yep, looking to take the mid lane turret here. That's so much pressure for DSU on this bottom side of the map with both of those turrets down. In 3 minutes, the Cloud Dragon will spawn. And I'd be surprised to see that go to NDSU. Oh, never mind. With a bit of coordination, they managed to take out the Rift Herald before it gets a slam down on the mid lane first here. That's interesting. Very smart from NDSU seeing that coming and playing correctly to counter that. Kasante just waiting to get his snacks, walking up to the turret. And they spot Maokai on his red. We could see a bit of a skirmish here pop up with health states an advantage for NDSU, especially with that Blitzcrank hook. Zeri's here to back them up, but so is Sejuani. Oh, this fight could go any way, especially for NDSU with a very clean Syndra stun, followed up by the Sejuani ult. Sacred looking to make up for it with some picks here, but Blitzcrank and Camille, who are both the ideal targets, are safely protected. Wow. Yep. Any advantage then that NDSU had has been furthered, and any advantage that DSU had has been ripped away from them, especially with losing that Rift Herald charge and that fight in the top lane. The next fight we expect to see in about 2 minutes at the Cloud Dragon pit. It's going to be a highly contended thing. for both teams. I'd expect to see all 5 members of both teams participate in that fight. We could see some splits, though. Already clearing vision down there as Crimson Samurai moves to the bottom lane and Sacred Conviction moves to farm mid. Fairly normal move you see in most games. The mid laner and bottom laner will swap as soon as the first or second turret goes down. And they know Blitzcrank's there, but they have to go for that ward, leading to a pretty clean pick for NDSU. That's the constant threat that Blitzcrank provides. Oh, a quick ability. Trade goes down in the top lane. I didn't see either health bar move. Pretty clean Cassante play. Something you'd expect from Fuyu playing it this often in the season. He walks up with a bit too much confidence, tanking a Camille Q, which is devastating to someone as durable as Cassante. And with 30 seconds on the Cloud Dragon, both teams are posturing for their bottom lane. Both top laners staying up there, though. Something unexpected on my end, but understandable. And Blitzcrank does take River Prio for this dragon, which could be the Prio or pick death sentence that DSU really doesn't want to come down here. Dragons kind of being their only saving grace for the early game, securing more pressure in the late game for them when they're stronger. Blitzcrank kind of gives up his river pressure to look for a gank on Zeri here, forcing a flash out before he even hooks, leaving her mobility-less to dodge the Sejuani ult. And that's a good pick here. Could be followed up with Cassante's demise. It is. DSU looking to make it back here by catching Syndra out in the bot lane, but she's a little bit too quick, I think. Yeah. Oh, and that just barely being at 21 minutes. The Baron has been up for 1 minute, and taking that heavy top prio, NDSU is going to take it. DSU should have looked to take a dragon there, just to secure themselves a little bit of a lead for the late game, but they're a little late on it, looking for the Syndra kill instead, which didn't work out. Yeah, and that is 2 free objectives for NDSU. Just can't contest them with 2 vital members of the team just going down earlier. Using their Baron to pressure for this mid first here. They get it. Will they look for more? Looks like they're going to scatter around the map and just take DSU's camps. And it's looking rough, but not unwinnable for DSU. This will just be about lasting out the Baron buff for as long as they can without giving up much in terms of turrets. Really, I think the main goal here is to maintain a strong position. DSU definitely not in the lead, but they're posturing to take it later game when Zeri gets her items and Anivia gets her burn. You could definitely see this swing way into DSU's favor later on, but for now, powerful picks like that are going to continue to keep them down. You hate to see that from Blitzcrank. Always a threat. Just instant death as soon as you get hit by that hook. Forcing another flash, and Blitzcrank lands another hook onto Anivia, but with her passive up, I don't think this will be a death for her. Sejuani has to flash over the wall, and NDSU is still looking for it. Blitzcrank's hook is not up in time to land that. However, it is a second tier for NDSU. No bueno. And we could be seeing Fuyu potentially getting dived here. Especially with that turret going down, it's going to be a total collapse. A good flash to dodge Sejuani W, but with everyone from NDSU there, there's not much you can do. And that's going to be another second tier for them. And it is super unfortunate to lose that early fight in the top lane and then losing Baron to it, especially when you don't trade it for Dragon. Ooh, but DSU does manage to go for a 1-for-1 with the Baron ult, or with the Baron buff up, which I would say is DSU sided, but ooh, with the Lulu ult, Sacred remains safe, but that comes with the trade-off of losing an inhibitor turret. Baron buff should be up in about a minute here. So DSU looking not to lose much more from it. They've already taken quite a bit of damage from that. But with turrets like that being down, it's much safer farm for Sacred. Which it may not be as quick to get his items, but it'll definitely be a lot safer. Kai'Sa has started taking Sejuani's camps, which is a fair move to try and just get her into 4 items, maybe 5, as fast as possible. And we see the top lane essentially be moved to the bottom lane, as that's where the farm is most pushed up most often. So you want both tanky members of the team to be there to take that for themselves, as they're both the safest. With the Shurelya's coming down from Lulu, it's hard for Blitzcrank to land a hook against that much movement speed. But NDSU moves Kai'Sa back up into DSU's jungle, securing more gold from her and indirectly taking more gold from them. As you see this gold lead reach about approximately 8,000 gold. But posturing to get a pick here with Maokai ult coming down, but you see all of both teams' big CC come down right immediately early. And this really could go either way. With Kai'Sa dashing in confidently, it's well-placed confidence as DSU is wiped from the field here. With absolutely no trades for DSU. Yeah, no, that was unfortunate. I think DSU posturing a little too forward there, but it gets very stressful playing from that far behind, trying to minimize your losses. And I think unless a miracle happens here, this will be NDSU's opportunity to end. Looks like they're not taking it though. With several members of the team up very briefly here, definitely could result in a comeback. So what's the safe play? And they look to secure another dragon for themselves, bringing them to Soul Point. Maokai's running down there as fast as he can to try and steal it, but NDSU has too much damage. And he'd be lucky to get his Merc Wolves here, so long as nobody walks up. Yeah, that's just devastating for DSU to lose these dragons. They're definitely in a precarious situation here with an inhibitor down and another inhibitor turret down. Just another bad fight like that one will be all NDSU needs to cinch this one out. We see the next fight get started with Maokai going down. Immediately followed up with the Camille ult onto Anivia. Not much you can do to escape that. And that's going to be, without Maokai up, another Baron for NDSU. That'll be the click of the guillotine here. There's not much DSU can look for here. Even trying hard to contest their own jungle camps. Lulu does not get out from a clean Syndra Q. K'Sante trying to back to save this game as much as he can, but it's too little too late as the mid inhibitor follows, as well as the top from Camille. All members of DSU will be up in about 15 seconds. So if DSU can manage to hold out for just that long without getting hit by a Blitzcrank hook, there's hope. There is hope. A solid Syndra QE coming down, followed up by Sejuani, disengaged by the Maokai ult. Everyone on DSU is up, so one clean pick might be all they need here, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough just to not lose here, especially with Sejuani landing her ult and charge. Crimson manages to get out. everyone manages to get out, but Xante brings it back as Anivia goes down, shortly followed by the Nexus. Yep, and that's the game. Solid performance from both sides there, but I think the early game just got a bit out of hand for NDSU. Yep, just a super strong performance from everybody. Essentially, everybody had their moment to shine in terms of just mechanics, in terms of macro. A lot of emphasis on the junglers that game you saw, as most lanes were even, if not slightly sided one side or the other. A big thing was how the jungler can influence every spot on the map, from objectives to lane states. And all it took was a couple of good plays from either side to make that game unwinnable for the other. And that's what you saw. Sejuani having very clean ultimates throughout that game and committing to almost all of them was the biggest factor for DSU's loss in this one. So I would not be surprised to see a Sejuani ban in match 2. I definitely could see that happening just because she was the driving threat behind almost all of DSU's big losses that game. I definitely think we'll see a big emphasis on just the Baron pit past 20 minutes from DSU, playing a little safer around it, not looking for disadvantageous skirmishes like they did last game, and combining that with the Sejuani ban, and how even both sides were almost throughout that entire game. It really just took one side getting the lead, getting a significant lead when you saw big discrepancies there. I definitely think game 2 can go either way. NDSU's performance was strong, and DSU's performance was strong, but neither so strong that I could predict accurately how this next game is going to go. We should be getting into draft sometime soon here, but until then, I'm expecting a shift up in the bot lane here. Maybe a Blitzcrank ban, maybe a Blitzcrank pick from DSU. That's also possible. Just seeing how much pressure that brought to the lane, and knowing it's a pick Brujas played before, I wouldn't be surprised to see it. However, it could be something similar here with hard engage versus hard safety. You saw how well executed Zeri's safety was that whole game. Every time Sejuani came down, it was just an easy E right over a wall, back to her turret. And Sacred seemed fairly comfortable in the pick. I wouldn't be surprised to see him pick it again. As for the top lane, maybe Fuyu got a little bit bored, might pick something more damage heavy to try and give himself a more exciting lane. But in draft, what's optimal is what's optimal, and I think we'll be looking at a tank matchup in the top lane. Real quick in the mid lane, I'd expect to see a less hard scaling pick than Anivia, just due to how that went. You want more pressure from that lane, having it have that wide influence over the most important parts of the map being objectives in the lane itself, as well as the occasional roam. I'd expect to see DSU pick something with a little bit more prio early game. But what that could be, it really could be anything, because NDSU likely will go with the same bans here, which forces Crimson out of a lot of his comfortable picks that are strong early game. As for the jungle, I wouldn't be surprised to see Maokai picked again. With NDSU not banning it in the draft, they likely won't again. And with it being such a strong pick right now, even through losing with Maokai, I could definitely see it being picked again. If the Sejuani ban comes down, solid alternatives to Sejuani would be Dr. Mundo. Not super prevalent in the jungle right now, but very tanky, very strong. Gragas, you see quite a bit of Gragas in these coordinated 5v5s because of how potent his ultimate can be in team fights. And as for supports, again, with big pressure on Blitzcrank, I would expect for DSU to try and deal with that just because of how uncomfortable it was to play against. But there are other hook champions, and I wouldn't be surprised to see one of them come out from NDSU, like a Thresh pick, maybe a Nautilus. Hard engage, maybe. DSU more comfortable with the defensive enchanters like Heimerdinger and Lulu, but Blitzcrank is definitely in their wheelhouse. Switching sides, however, gives DSU first pick. So I would see that going either jungle or support, just because those are the most influential roles on that last game. You always want to take prio where you saw your weak points were. Hopefully DSU isn't too discouraged from their early loss, because it's definitely still anyone's game. As we get into draft, DSU starts it off with an Amumu ban. We're just repeating what we saw last game so far, and the Blitzcrank ban does come down. Yep. I definitely agree with that. Victor, yep. Sejuani, Blitzcrank and Sejuani coming down as banned. Again, the most problematic champions on NDSU's team last game. However, that does give NDSU more options in terms of playing things that were banned last game, just trying to maintain, it's possible that banning Blitzcrank and Sejuani have opened up comfort picks for NDSU, which could be problematic. But that's the end of the ban phase. And DSU decides to first pick, again, my prediction would be a jungler or support, but it could really be anything. It's Udyr. Yep. Udyr's also very strong right now. He's been strong ever since he was reworked. Looking at big engage and big slows with sustained damage. NDSU probably looking to also pick their jungler here, already knowing what DSU has. But I don't know exactly what out there would be good against Udyr. Because he's definitely a super strong pick here. Trundle's, yes, that one I can understand entirely. Trundle's very good at dealing with these tanky targets, because his whole shtick is that he steals their stats. NDSU would follow that up with something that can capitalize on Trundle Pillar, I'd assume. Being able to play around its big slow. Definitely not as potent an engage as Sejuani ult, but Trundle Pillar definitely still a threat, and we see Kai'Sa come out with that. Kai'Sa being left open, and with a strong performance from NDSU on it. I'm not surprised to see that again. DSU has been given a glimpse into what NDSU's bot lane is looking like. So I would definitely like to see a Kai'Sa counter here. Rel and Samira. Yep, that'll do it. Rel and Samira have a good combo. Just being able to get in there and do a lot of damage while making it so you don't move at all. With a confident, strong engage pick like that, I wouldn't be surprised to see NDSU take up some kind of anti-engage support here. Maybe a Morgana, maybe a Thresh. And they side for Azir. That was one of the bans we saw from DSU, if I'm not mistaken. So it probably is a comfortable middle lane pick for NDSU. And we're back in the ban phase. I'm expecting to see just straight repeats from NDSU with Vladimir. And DSU, seeing if they can, maybe they'll go back to what they were banning earlier. Maybe they'll look to ban more of NDSU's picks last game. Anything's possible here. They really need to shake things up because of how that last game went. So a lot of moves on the table here. And DSU goes with Shen again. Yep. Makes sense. Not much to see there. Shen's a consistent ban, even in the pros, just because of how potent his shield and instant teleport across the map can be. At DSU, with their final ban, can we see a total 100% repeat of what happened last game? I can't remember exactly what that was. It was Victor, Annie, Vladimir, and Swain. That's right. We do see a complete repeat. DSU capping off the ban phase, focusing again, probably on the top lane, maybe on the support some more. Just looking to limit options as much as they can. It could be looking to ban previous picks, even from games before this one, or just looking at the meta. It's possible you'll see anything from Orin again. That one intrigues me. I think it's not as strong a ban as it was last game, just because DSU is posturing more to win early, at least with these 3 picks so far. And it's NDSU's turn to give up some more of their cards to show DSU exactly what they can counterpick here. And they choose to pick Zach top. It could be Trundle top, but I'd expect more to see Zach. And with that, that does give you full reign to pick something tank shreddy, something more fun. But that's what I expect, because DSU already has the tankiness it brings out with Udyr and Rel. Something more bruisery, something with more CC is what I'm looking to see here from DSU. Yone. Yep. That's exactly what we're looking for here. A lot of mobility, a lot of damage, and a lot of CC from Yone's ultimate. That's an interesting pick here. Combos well with Rel and Samira. With Rel being good at grouping up enemies in one place, and Yone being good at murdering people for doing that. Gragas, I think, has a bit of an anti-synergy with Rel here, with his ult looking to scatter. But it's still a strong pick tool. Gragas bringing out more magic damage and more tankiness, which is a big thing here for DSU. They have a very unkillable comp, which is kind of rough against Kai'Sa and Trundle. I would say picking that Gragas is a bit of a mistake. Just giving Trundle more meat to steal stats from. NDSU coming out with a Camille pick. Interesting. That could mean that that's Camille mid, but I'd expect to see it top lane. So NDSU's draft kind of confuses me here. It's possible that it's Zach support. That's what I would like to see. Getting out of draft. Oh man, that was interesting to me. Seeing DSU commit more with the tanky comps, even against a Trundle, questionable pick to me. But I know for a fact they're more knowledgeable than me, that they feel confident that it's possible that Gragas can keep Trundle off of the team. Maybe that's what they're saving the ultimate for. Definitely confusing to me. But I like to see this heavy engage comp. It puts a lot of emphasis on Samira being very good at getting in there and dealing her damage that way. So that it could be an exciting game for DSU. They definitely switched up their tactic big time here, looking to win early and keep winning. So I expect a much less boring early game, if any of you were upset about that. As for the top lane, looking at it probably being Gragas versus Camille, that is interesting to me because obviously Camille being able to shred through Gragas pretty easily with her percentage max HP true damage, but Gragas being able to put on more damage from afar with his Q. In the top lane, most of the damage you saw last game came from both Fuyu and his enemy top laner walking up to the wave to try and farm. Gragas doesn't necessarily have to do that. So you might see either a much less exciting top lane, as Gragas just looks to farm out from under Camille, or it could be more exciting with two mechanically intensive champions wailing on each other the whole time. As for the jungle, I'm expecting either Udyr against Trundle or Udyr against Zach, which I think is fairly even for both sides. Even in that case, And looking at NDSU's draft right now in the moment with my secret eyes that you can't see, it is Camille top, Zach jungle, Azir support, and Kaisa with a Trundle support. Okay. Trundle support is not impossible to see coming. It's definitely more off meta than you'd think. You'd see a pick like that in here. But I like it. It's definitely, I mean, what can I say? It's cool to see. I definitely think Trundle E can be solid disengage from the Samira and Rel combo. And again, he's a strong pick against tanky picks like Gragas, like Udyr, and like Rel. Especially with Azir's ultimate being able to shove everyone from DSU right over there. I maintain that this will be a more exciting game just because of the nature of Samira, the nature of Yone, both aiming to just shove through the front line and make things crazy. Zach also has that similar goal here, looking to just get in there and cause havoc. Azir, obviously, with Shreem and Shuffle, his infamous combo, always keeps things exciting, just as much as Blitzcrank could. And you see very big all-in here from both sides, but especially from DSU with Samira and Yone. NDSU has a more conservative comp. They're looking like, yes, we can get in on you and deal our damage that way, and we can definitely keep you off of us. That's kind of the purpose of Trundle support, and that's definitely the purpose of Zach. Oh, that's interesting to me to see Trundle support. I still can't get over that. I wouldn't say it's a troll pick beyond the fact that it's actually a troll picked. But I always love seeing Trundle support played just because it's so interesting to watch him function. Because it really is just all in the pillar. And it is such, you'd think that that's not good, only having essentially one ability outside of just damage from NDSU. But Trundle's pillar is so devastating in the bottom lane, especially against an ADC like Samira that can't dash anywhere but in, that it's all he needs. In the neutral game, Trundle pillar is so crippling. So that's the big power play we see from NDSU here, picking the Trundle support. But I would definitely give the bottom lane to DSU. Samira and Rel have such powerful synergies with each other that I would be surprised to see DSU lose bottom lane again. And with Yone versus Azir, I think that's a skill matchup, especially on Azir's part, trying to keep soldiers on Yone, trying to maintain the control that Azir can bring against the high mobility Yone that will do his best to, keep the pressure up, make it so Azir can't set up as easily. And Udyr and Zach always pressuring every lane with just their speed and their CC. With all of that in mind, I would be inclined to give this draft to DSU. Just barely. Again, I think NDSU has a very strong draft. But just based on the nature of how the teams are working out, I would give DSU a slight advantage right here just from the draft. 10 seconds left on the spectator delay. So we'll be getting into the game shortly. I am super excited to watch this one unfold. I think it'll be super exciting. And I'm super interested to see how bottom lane goes. I can't stop talking about Trundle support, but it's so cool to see. Getting into the loading screen here right about now. And there we have it. And we're in. With the powerful starting abilities like Trundle's Pillar and Zach's Slingshot, I'd expect at least looking for an invade from NDSU here. And DSU sees that coming too, looking to 5-stack in their top side jungle. Learning from last game, they learned that NDSU likes to posture their invades on the top side, as they didn't see the Blitzcrank invade coming on the bot lane last time. Instead of 5-stacking, actually, they're looking to secure a kill here, but Camille is posturing very safely towards her turret. Just inches away from each other. Ooh. Yep, the Rel W does land, and that forces a flash out of Camille. Super strong start for Gragas. Being down a flash against the Gragas can be super devastating because it means that you're at his mercy when it comes to the flash E engage if he ever feels like he can win a fight against you. Especially with Phase Rush, there's just no getting away from the fat man. But beyond that quick skirmish, we're seeing basic starts from both junglers yet again, just starting with Alish. However, we do see Udyr start topside, which definitely shows the more aggressive nature of this bottom lane. They want Udyr is there as soon as possible to pressure NDSU into losing this lane. Without having to leash in the bottom lane, DSU takes a small advantage there. And we see Camille take somewhat decent prio early, just based on the nature of her superior damage right now. Looking to exercise that power against Gragas as much as possible. We see both bot lanes here being very close to level 2. This is the big moment. DSU hits it first, but NDSU was quick to react and backs off just in time. DSU's top lane falls into a bit of a disadvantageous state here, but Udyr is immediately here to back it up with a level 2 gank on a caught-out Camille. Without her flash, I think this is it for her. Unless she took E second, which I don't think she did. We've already seen the Q and the W. Wow. Very well played from DSU, taking advantage of the fact that they got her mobility summoner early. Just taking this lane into DSU's hands. Crimson, again, trying to exercise his mobility to avoid Azir's control, which successfully ends up in a trade there. With NDSU having the bigger wave bot lane, you could definitely see a crash and then a big engage from DSU. And if they can take prio in this lane as well, if they can take the advantage, I would put this game so far in the grasp of DSU. With Trundle at level 3, we see something exciting happen there. Forcing Rel to use her engage spell to get out, but that does give a health advantage to DSU. Overall, very well played from Bruhan Sacred. But that Trundle engage does stop Sacred from thinning the wave so much that it's going to crash, which will force some of that CS out of Sacred's hands. I don't think DSU sees Zac here heading down to the bot lane, but I'm sure they can predict he's there with Dragon coming up in just under a minute. Wow, Camille, even with her early death, still has such early power that just in a 1 versus 1, she's still the winner. At least for now. And that's the crippling nature of Trundle Pillar right there. Even though Zac's so far away, because of the massive slow from Trundle Pillar, Sacred has to worry about a potential gank there and has to immediately back off. Could have developed into a bit of an all-in here, with Trundle being a bit too far away from his turret. DSU doesn't look for it. Probably the safe call. And so far, with just a 400 gold lead in favor of DSU, with Dragon up, and DSU having their jungler closer to it, this could definitely result in the first Dragon going to DSU. But I'd be surprised to see it go uncontested, even against the early power of Samira and Rel. Udyr going for a sneaky bush play. NDSU doesn't see it coming. Forces a flash trade. Unfortunate DSU can't make a little bit more out of that. And that gives Zach time to posture more into his blue side, which makes this dragon way more contested. And with all lanes except bot lane being at level 6, we could definitely see changes in the power dynamic in both lanes. Gragas definitely much scarier when he's closer to his turret, being able to casket you just right into his turret, and that essentially immediately wins the fight for him. Trundle looks for an engage here, and Kai'Sa does exhaust. With Zach coming in, it forces a flash out of Sacred, and Brujah's fairly caught out here. Yep, even getting his W back up, not much you can do to get out of there. Ooh, and not even with the ult, Gragas takes a pretty huge health advantage here. That's what you like to see. He just has massive gold advantage over Camille at the moment because he has backed and she hasn't. And that trend will continue with this big wave crashing in. Big tempo advantage towards Gragas, and he does that just purely with his item advantage. Looking to crash this wave as well, just prevent Camille from backing for as long as humanly possible. Azir finds a control ward on the dragon. And it's still, both teams are still really looking for this thing. Azir kind of caught out there, but he's just too mobile and too safe. Camille finally gets her recall off. And NDSU looks to be posturing for this dragon. Coming down for a bottom gank. Ooh, an impressive flash ult from Zach. Securing kind of a solid engage here, but Udyr is here to back it up. Not just going for the Zach passive, looking for something more, but they do eventually just commit to taking out Zach. With Yone arriving, though, they look for Kai'Sa, and they find her. And that is the dragon. That's 2 kills in a dragon for DSU. Taking a firm gold lead in exchange for just a plating on Azir. Good on Azir, trying to minimize losses as best he can. But with Rel showing up here, it could prove to be slightly greedy. He sees it coming just a little bit too soon, but they go for it anyway. That tower shot shouldn't kill Crimson. It doesn't. And everyone leaves NDSU's mid-first tier just clinging on to the threads of life. And the 400 gold lead in favor of DSU is maintained, plus a dragon. We see a somewhat big 600 gold lead here in the bottom lane for DSU, just coming naturally from that extra kill. But being alone for just a little bit kind of minimizes the advantage she can pull from that. But she does manage to farm somewhat safely. Same thing here with Gragas. Even though he is more even with Camille at this point, just having more damage and more tanky stats. But with Zach here, if we doesn't see it coming, it could be deadly. DSU does see it coming. Udyr comes up for the follow-up. And with Azir posturing, he's forced off. Crimson looking for something here, just barely managing to E out before Zach can get him. You definitely see Brujah exercising his engage power here. They both know that getting hit with a Rel W is big damage, and that's why he's willing to flash in to secure it, following it up with an ult, and Kai'Sa does manage to just barely survive. And so does Sacred, with a big health advantage going. And a kill on Trundle. He stays a bit long there. Should have just backed off, but he's looking to... Ooh, and Yone's here to back it up. Just a zoning ult there to keep her out. She either has to tank it or walk back and immediately take the death. Zach looking to take it back, though, with the Rift Herald. Not willing to just trade kills for nothing. But that does put him at somewhat of a precarious position here against DSU. Brujah walking up to make this 2v2 or 3v3, 2v3 or 3v4. And Zach goes for it with a crippling Grog Assault separating her from the wall. And that's just an easy kill on the Zach, which just puts the Rift Herald right firmly into DSU's hands, which is huge for them. Crimson doesn't quite have enough damage to kill Trundle just yet, but he's getting there. The Rift Herald almost immediately comes down in the mid lane, trying to secure as many plates as possible. AM hits the turret, and with a big wave crashing, you'd like to see more pressure come out from DSU here, but they kind of have to back off just from the area control of the threat of Trundle and Azir. Both bot laners left to their own devices here. As Trundle takes the crab, probably just looking to get vision down with the drag up in 100 seconds. Yone walks up to hit him with a classic combo, something you see all the time on Yone. Just dashes in, hits him with a W, and then tries to follow it up with more Steel Wind. Brujah finds himself in a precarious position, but he has the tanky stats to get out of it just fine. With Dragon up in 1 minute, DSU again focuses most of their power bottom side. And Zach either has to do the same and give up getting his red side camps, or give up more prio on this second dragon. We see a big fight come down here in the bottom lane. Doesn't look like it will result in any kills, but definitely on DSU's favor. Even with Azir roaming down, the fight ends too soon for him to do much about it. But he's still looking to shuffle people under turret here, especially with Zach's follow-up. But Udyr is on to them, posturing in a bush here to try and stop the engage. But nothing much happens. The Cold War will stay cold, probably for the next at least 15 seconds till the dragon is up. Again, Gragas using poke to give himself an advantage in lane. That's kind of the safety I was talking about earlier, with him not having to walk up and trade health for farm. And the pressure is back on the Hextech Dragon. Brujah looking to clear vision. NDSU might want to have something to say about that, but he gets away with it. And that leaves Tankies enough time to clear his red, maybe his Krugs, before this can all start. DSU trying to secure just as much health advantage as they can, but catching a Trundle Pillar in the process. This could be Sacred caught out, but Brujah is there to follow it up, try and contest that pick. Sacred has to flash out, but I think he survives it. Zach goes down, but in his passive, with the teleport coming down, it's possible he could survive this, but he doesn't. DSU's damage is beginning to spike, and Trundle, I believe, also falls here. There it is. Yone going for a quick dive, possibly his Ignite cleaning it up. He does. That's a lot of gold towards Crimson. And the Dragon? I'd be surprised if NDSU continues to contest it. And we see DSU's gold lead reach about 4,000. Super impressive play from DSU here. I like to see the aggressive style in bot lane. I think that's something Bruhan, Sacred have very good synergy playing as together. It's definitely the more successful style for DSU here. Even in the mid lane, the more aggressive style, as opposed to Anivia on Yone, is something that you see Crimson be a bit more comfortable with. The man picks fights. And we see Kai'Sa just continuing to farm in the bottom lane. And it looks like Samira might make her migration into the mid lane here. And the brief amount of time Yone and Kai'Sa will spend together in the bot lane is going to be a deadly time for Kai'Sa. If Yone can get his hands on her, it's definitely going to be a huge burst of damage and possibly a kill. Especially when she doesn't have exhaust or flash to escape. Fuyu going in for a bit of a trade here, and it's a bit advantageous. But knowing Udyr's there, that gives him the confidence to go in. With an even bigger fight popping up in the mid lane, it's a 4v2. And we see Kai'Sa pick up both of the kills there, catching out DSU's bot lane and support in one fell swoop. Very clean from NDSU. Just looking for that solid engage. Zach threatening all the time. Even from out of your vision, you have to assume he's there at all times. And we're back to a neutral game here. Yone using his one-of-a-kind safety to get a free control ward from NDSU. We see even more neutrality up here in the top lane. Both of them just looking to be, looking to whittle each other down so they can be the more supportive team member when the pressure comes to the top lane, like with this Rift Herald. With Dragon up in 2.5 minutes, the pressure is definitely up on Rift Herald. That's the only objective that's up right now, and both sides are contesting it pretty heavily. Even Yone is heading back up top side, willing to forfeit some of that bot lane gold to try and secure a winning fight here. Vision is super contested. You see just about every scanner in the game come down to try and take the advantage in that department. DSU finds out that Zach is indeed topside, that NDSU is probably looking for this Rift Herald, but seeing those backs in the mid lane, I think that gives them the opportunity they need to look for this thing. Especially with Zach being busy with the Spirit Man in the mid lane. Doesn't get caught out here. We do see the Rift Herald go to DSU. Yone getting another free control ward with his safety. NDSU trying to catch him out for it, but he has a very clean flash. Bruja has to go in to help save him with a very, very ballsy re-engage from Crimson, leading to a fantastic fight for DSU here and a triple kill for Crimson. Super impressive play. He reacted almost immediately to Azir's attempt to shuffle him, and that gives them a fantastic Rift Herald down this mid lane, with essentially only Camille there to try and stop this absolute beast from taking their second tier. DSU says no, go a little further back, and they take the second tier for free. Almost all of NDSU is back up, but they're still looking to get this inhibitor turret, which they get. Zach looking to try and get an engage here. Gragas forces him off. And DSU just looking to get out here. Zach looking to not let that happen. He catches Gragas, but the man's too tanky. He just walks away. And here's a barrel for your troubles. Zach going for it again. I think he goes a little too ham here. NDSU trying to follow it up with their health state advantage, but DSU's damage is just too much. Not to get overconfident, but I would say that's, unless a miracle happens for NDSU, that's the game for DSU. Azir has to put up his passive turret there to try and save himself. Works out. And this game has now begun to look really, really good for DSU, approaching a 10,000 gold lead. And the third dragon in a row, bringing them to soul point, and in 5 minutes, that's going to be really, really important, because if they can maintain this advantage, it's going to either force NDSU into a disadvantageous fight, or force them to give an infernal soul, which is one of the most devastating dragon souls to play against. DSU with a full reset, cashes in all of that gold advantage. Yone hitting 2 items. And 2 items on Yone obviously means 100% crit, which is such a huge power spike for that champion. He's basically full build at this point. Everything else is just a little bonus. And DSU telling NDSU that they are looking for this Baron, forcing a fight out of NDSU, which takes Trundle's life and takes Zack's ultimate out of the picture, which could be free reign for DSU to start this Baron, and they do. Not that NDSU doesn't know about it; it's just that they can't do much about it. It's going to come down to a smite fight, 50-50, unless Brewhawk can really force them off here. Oh, and Yone goes for a big play. Just barely doesn't manage to catch Zack in it. Looks for the Kaisa, forces everyone off. Crimson exercising his power to just secure the Baron. Very smart from DSU. I like that a lot. And with Baron on DSU, they're probably looking to use that exclusively on the top and bottom lanes, trying to take both of those second tiers to further their gold lead here. Clean dodging mechanics from Crimson here lead to him getting a solid bit of an advantage here over Camille. Even if he has less percentage HP, having Camille be that far down definitely gives him an advantage there. Trundle comes up to back it up, but Crimson is too smart for it. Forces Trundle to back off. And that's even more pressure with this Baron buff, making all of the minions stronger, ready to just walk up to this first tier. Udyr finds Zack in the jungle. That's a lot of information for both sides. And all of DSU, except for Gragas in the bottom lane, is here posturing for this second tier. And actually, all 5 members of NDSU have to come up and forfeit their second tier bottom lane turret. But they try and exercise that numbers advantage. Brewhawk catches them out on their greed, and that is a massive wombo combo from DSU. That's crazy. Although Crimson does manage to go down for it, giving a 1,000 gold shutdown. It also forced Gragas' teleport out, which did take his opportunity to get the second tier there, which I'm not sure was the right decision. That's a lot of gold to just give up. And we're back to a fairly neutral game, with Dragon up in a minute and a half, and DSU definitely being stronger. I think if they have all 5 members of their team there, something like that won't happen again, where DSU gets the big engage off, gets all the damage off, and then gets a little bit too greedy. I don't think that can happen with the extra tank and damage from Gragas. And I would expect all 5 members to be there for this dragon fight, unless Fuyu wants to go for another second tier. With Dragon up in about 1 minute, you see both teams migrate down to the southern side of the map, looking to both claim it for themselves. And Fuyu does back, probably looking to move bottom lane. Normally, you want the top laner in the top lane applying pressure during these dragon fights, but when you're at soul point, that's the real crucial moment. And we see a bit of a fight break out. Yone goes whole hog for it, does manage to catch out Trundle once again. It's not quite the value of catching Zach, taking the smite out of the equation, but Trundle is a valuable member of their team here when it comes to going for these fights because of how crucial the pillar is and the powerful stat steal off of one of DSU's tanks. Yone looks for even more here, but he does get caught out by Zach. And it ensues a big fight. Bruja getting another great engage as you're forcing everyone off, but DSU follows them right over there with all of their mobility and manages to take out most of NDSU's team. Actually, everyone but Kaisa. And that makes it so that this soul is going to be virtually uncontested for DSU. It's another second tier. Even though the Baron buff is over by now, it's definitely done its part. It drew a lot of pressure to a lot of parts of the map, and that secured that DSU will keep their advantage all the way through to this soul fight, which you saw is kind of the death blow for NDSU this game. With 2 inhibitors down, you can tell that DSU is obviously posturing to end this one very soon. Maybe they'll wait the extra minute to get the Baron buff just to make it so that it's an absolute guarantee that they'll win this, but, you know, it's the formalities here. NDSU, not ones to quit, though. They're just looking to secure as much gold for themselves in their jungle as possible, while they're mostly confident that DSU won't be there. They just want to secure their camps, try and minimize the losses. And I definitely think that their play here is to make it so that Zach steals the Baron. That's such a precarious position, though, with Yone, Gragas, even Samira being able to get over the wall and attack you. I would say, even in a smite fight, even though it's called a 50-50, I would say it's definitely DSU-sided. That's another free second tier for DSU. They don't have the time to back and cash out the gold they get from it, but it's more pressure on their inhib. You know, you can't really trade an inhibitor turret in this scenario. So that definitely draws a member of NDSU up there. And with them being so busy with these super minions, that just means that the Baron does have to go uncontested. If I were Zach here, I would maybe sit in my Krugs, try and get a sneaky steal off, but it's just so difficult here. And with the Baron buff, and with 2 inhibitors down, DSU has a massive siege here that is going to be almost impossible to stop. As we see them look for the top inhibitor, which is a strange place to attack from, but it definitely makes sense to me. Getting all 3 inhibitors down hurts a lot because it just multiplies the amount of... I mean, it more than doubles the amount of super minions that are coming your way. Crimson looking for another big fight here, gets kind of caught out for it, does manage to go down again, but for his life, he has won the fight for DSU. Call it a sacrifice of sorts. Ooh. We could be looking at a Penta here for Sacred. Come on, guys. It's looking rough. Sacred, though, taking a clean Quadra at the very end there. And taking the red Nexus. And I believe this will be the first time this season we see DSU go into Game 3. A worthy opponent, and DSU has proven to be. I'm very impressed with all 10 players here. Everyone's played super well, either in Game 1, Game 2, or both. And I'm super excited to see how, especially this next draft goes, because both sides have found major success doing one particular strategy and not the other. So I expect DSU to double down, go for another big engage comp, and NDSU to look for another engage / more passive scaling comp like they did with the Kaisa Sejuani combo in game 1. We're going to take a quick break here, just real quick. I will see you guys real soon when we get into game 3. Welcome back to the stream. We're heading into game 3. 1 for 1 on DSU. Super impressive performance from both sides, like I mentioned earlier. Definitely the closest matches we've seen DSU have to contend with so far in this season. They're really looking to secure it out with the 1-2 win. Last game, we saw a super strong performance all throughout the game from Crimson Samurai. His Yone plays were super clean, always looking for the ultimate opportunities and taking every single one he could find. Always working out with Bruha's excellent follow-up. The Rel ult perfectly synergizes with Yone. It's just a super aggressive comp. And then right towards the end there, you saw a super amazing, very clean Quadra from Sacred. You love to see it. Just barely couldn't get the Penta. But what are you going to do sometimes? As for NDSU, you've been seeing a very clean performance from their support, especially in game 1 with their excellent blitzcrank hooks, always providing pressure in the correct places. I think he really put the pressure on Bruja game 2 to match him. Bruja came out with spades and more than matched him with some excellent Rel dives. To be fair, Rel brings more follow-up with her with that Yone pick and the Samira pick. But I'm impressed with the performance from everyone here. Fuyu, very understated member of the team so far. I know I've been neglecting the top lane just based on how neutral both of those games are, but you saw consistently clean mechanics from him, always, especially on Gragas, always maintaining a health advantage in the top lane. And that's just the nature of Gragas. He's always, he brings that mixture of tankiness, damage, and range that makes him a formidable threat against most laners because he's either super safe or super deadly or against like a Teemo, both. So interesting for this bottom lane on the next match. I'd like to see more aggressive picks from DSU and maybe more aggressive picks from NDSU because that's what worked out for them game 1, and then we could just see an absolute beat down bar brawl in the bottom lane, which could be extremely fun, especially with the solid mechanics we've been seeing from both sides. Breaking news, NDSU subbing out their support. I think a member of their team just can't make it through all 3 games. It is what it is. So we'll be seeing a different, unique style here in the bottom lane with NDSU support. It's opening a mystery box mid-game, which could prove devastating for either side, really, depending on how it goes. I can tell you from personal experience that switching supports after 2 games can be jarring, especially if their styles are particularly different. As for these next few minutes, we're going to be taking a quick break the stream isn't going to be taking a quick break, but the teams will be taking a quick break before they get into Draft 3. So I'll spend a bit more time talking about my expectations for this 3rd game. In all 4 jungle picks that we've seen, they've always been heavily focused on speed and on engage. Sejuani, Udyr, Maokai, and the Zach pick have all been focused on getting in there and making it so you can't move as much as possible. And I would expect to see that theme continue just because that's what's the meta. That's what's super strong right now in the jungle. As for the top lane, we've consistently seen tanky picks from DSU, like Cassante and Gragas, with big moment outplay potential, and then somewhat tanky bruisers coming out from NDSU. As we get into draft, NDSU, we just get ambushed by the draft here. NDSU coming out. All 3 games banning Heimerdinger and Victor. All 3 games DSU bans Amumu. And Amumu definitely shows what I was talking about with the jungle earlier just now, with being fast and being deadly in CC. Sejuani as well. Yep. DSU may just repeat their bans from the last game, and DSU coming out with the Yone ban, which is something I definitely understand. Crimson brought out an amazing performance here, but that does mean that NDSU leaves out one of Crimson's various comfortable, strong picks, whether that would be Vladimir or Victor, which they did already ban. We'll see. So we'll see a bit more of an emphasis on, with the ban phase ending here with a Nautilus ban in the bottom lane, which is interesting to me. I'd expect Blitzcrank if they're going to ban a hook champion, just because of how game 1 went. But it is a different support. So it's possible that this is a Nautilus main or Nautilus player in their competitive games. But as the ban phase ends, first pick goes back to NDSU for this draft, and they decide to use Annie. Yep, that's something you got to expect in this meta. Annie, I think, has a 57% win rate, last I checked at least, which is super impressive. If you leave her open, she's probably going to get picked. It's something I understand entirely. Both teams made trade-offs in their bans here. The Annie pick is lost from DSU, which obviously shows up in that first pick for NDSU. But DSU has the opportunity to immediately counterpick in the mid lane, but they don't choose to do it right away. They choose to repeat the Rel-Samira combo. You saw Bruja and Sacred Conviction be super comfortable on it just earlier, super strong with it, and I'm excited to see them play it more. Normally, I'd get a little bored of repetitive lanes, but it was so fun to watch them play that I'm perfectly fine with seeing that again. NDSU does not double down on the aggressive picks, and they take Xayah, who's quite a bit safer. With her ultimate, she can definitely get herself out of most sticky situations, and then follow it up with a lot of damage. Maokai, I'm surprised to see Maokai be left open this far down into the draft, but he does get picked by NDSU. They're going full meta with this game, with Annie, Maokai, and the Xayah counter pick. So I'm interested to see what support they combo with Xayah here, whether they continue on with the safe trend or try and make something of the powerful engage from Annie and Maokai here. DSU comes down with Jarvan, another powerful combination with Rel and Samira. The King of Demacia definitely brings down a lot of threat with his Cataclysm Cage, forcing anyone without a dash to just stay very still for a long time, followed up by Rel, forcing you to stand still for a very long time. We see a Camille ban come from DSU, which makes sense. You've seen it picked twice in a row at this point from NDSU. And even if it hasn't been a particularly deadly pick from NDSU, it's still a consistent one. You know, they're comfortable on it. You want to shake them up as much as you can. Vladimir ban coming from NDSU. Again, just focusing more of their power on Crimson, trying to put him in as much of a draft straitjacket as they can. DSU uses their final ban to take out Shen once again. Another consistent ban you've been seeing here. I think DSU has had some trouble with him in the past in scrimmages. So it makes sense that they'd be uncomfortable with seeing that picked. NDSU follows up with a 5th ban. I would expect to see it come from the mid lane. Nope, they focus it on the top lane and ban Ornn. Ornn's another consistent ban we've seen throughout this game. And I understand it. He brings a lot of powerful engage with Call of the Forge God, and then with his upgraded mythic items in the later game, a lot of gold value as well. DSU repeat picks the Gragas. I respect that. It was super cool. It's a dynamic pick, so I'd like to see Fuyu play it again. But that does leave the top lane counter pick open for NDSU, especially with a Camille ban. We really have no idea what's going to come out here. But I would expect it to be a top laner. It would be pretty confusing to see it come out as their support. Yep. Darius coming down into Gragas. I think that forces Gragas to play a lot safer. Getting into Darius's range is kind of a death sentence against him, at least earlier game. And that's strangely aggressive for NDSU. The combination of Maokai and Darius lead me to believe that they might focus more of their power on the top lane for this game. Just leaving Xayah to survive with her ultimate, which makes sense. They followed up with Alistar. They're okay. I was wrong about the Xayah pick. They're not playing safe. Alistar comes down as a deadly counter engage to Rel, and it's going to be a showdown between NDSU's support and our very own Bruja. DSU follows it up with a Cassiopeia pick, which makes sense. More AP is always welcome, especially with Samira and Jarvan in the picture. And I've seen Crimson Samurai play Cassiopeia a couple times before, so it's definitely in his wheelhouse, and it's one of the more consistent AP damages in the game, which you kind of need against picks like Darius and Maokai and even Tibbers from Annie. So overall, I would give this draft pretty heavily in favor of DSU in terms of comfort, in terms of synergy, but in terms of just the sheer amount of meta picks, I'm going to have to give this one to NDSU. Which I would say balances it out. It's another fairly even draft, but I would lean slightly in favor of DSU for this one. You see so much devastating power come down. Cassiopeia W, limiting the amount of dashes, combine that with Jarvan's ultimate, and it essentially makes it an inescapable death box for Samira and Gragas to wail on you in. As for the Maokai and Annie pick, definitely strong, the strongest jungler and the strongest mid laner individually at the moment. But as for synergy with their team, I would disagree with those picks, just in total. Darius benefits a lot from getting in there. Maokai does as well, but Annie benefits more from summoning Tibbers as her own front line and staying back as consistent AP damage. So seeing that kind of dive comp mixed with the front-to-back damage of Annie, I would say these picks kind of clash with each other. So NDSU is definitely relying on the raw power of these picks at the moment instead of just running for team synergy like DSU has. Maybe that's a result of them having an unfamiliar teammate in their substitute support. Maybe it just comes from wanting to switch up their strategy here, as game 2 didn't go in their favor. But I'm expecting an interesting bottom lane here. Obviously, Xayah synergizes with Alistar less than Samira would with Rel, just because Zaya does benefit from the engage. You know, the longer Alistar can hold someone still, the longer Zaya can put feathers behind them, which essentially more than doubles your damage. But Samira benefits way more from a support that can go in than Zaya can. Zaya is more comfortable to have an Enchantress support them while they deal their damage from afar, because Zaya has extremely long range, and she's way more willing to just stay back. But I like it. I like it from NDSU because it's definitely trying to stay safe from the Rel Ws, which is something you saw NDSU's ADC struggle with last game. Just trying to stay out of her range while maintaining farm. And Zaya doesn't make that much easier, but it gives you a lifeline with your ultimate. You know, it's kind of an oh crap button for her to push and secure some damage while securing her own life. Cassiopeia into Annie is interesting because Annie doesn't have any direct dashes. Cassiopeia has always been a good counter to champions that move around a lot, just because she grounds you with her W. But I do like the consistent damage to shred through Tibbers, and I do like it against Annie just because she has difficulty getting away. She gets some ability from her W, but not nearly as much as Cassiopeia gets from her passive. So I'm interested to see how the synergies work out here, how NDSU plays around having the stronger picks, but less combination potential. And I'm very interested to see how this bottom lane works out. It's going to be DSU sided, but still a skill matchup. Definitely on the supports here to find an opportunity, to find a window, and to get in there. And then that's when you'll see the ADCs shine in the 2 versus 2, who can lay down more damage, who can dodge more skill shots, et cetera, and et cetera. As for the junglers, we keep up the trend of tanky engage, quick tanky engage picks with Maokai again and Jarvan IV. And in the top lane, we keep up NDSU's pattern of having somewhat tanky, but mostly damage dealing bruisers, and DSU keeps up their pattern of Gragas. But I do like the Gragas pick repeat. It synergizes well. I mean, you saw how it synergized, right? It was last game. It wasn't so much used in the actual engage combos because none of DSU was satisfied with enemies being spread apart. And I think it'll be used the same way again as it's used for just pure engage, getting someone out of position and in the line of fire, or disengage, get away from us kind of deal. I think that's every member of both teams covered, but I'd like to revisit the top lane because I only brushed by it briefly. Darius definitely brings a big threat early game. Darius passive provides some of the most damage you'll ever see at level 1. He's almost uncontested as the strongest champion at that stage in the game. But I don't think he's a very solid counter pick against Gragas, just because I would say Gragas has his slow and his dash, and especially the big disengage from his ultimate. Darius will never get a hold of Gragas if Gragas doesn't want him to. So I would definitely put the control of that lane on Gragas, but the sheer threat goes to Darius. Top lane, I think we'll definitely see go just down to how often the junglers visit that lane, and how both teams play around the Rift Herald. Darius definitely provides more threat in the Rift Herald fight because obviously if Maokai's there to take it, DSU has to come to him, and Darius is very strong in that regard. But as opposed to Jarvan, with Darius not having any dashes, he's just going to have to take the Cataclysm, which can lead to big damage from a fully charged Gragas Q, leading into just a charge and then a W auto attack, while Jarvan lays down his more consistent damage. So that lane's going to be interesting. Not as interesting as the bottom lane, and not as dynamic as the mid lane can be. But I'm very interested to see if it's as neutral as last time, because I don't feel it will be. As we get into loading screen here, we see some familiar faces and some unfamiliar faces, and we're in. As for invade potential, you could see the flash Q from Alistar, the flash E from Darius, or the flash W from Maokai. Not much going for DSU on the terms of invade. So I'd be surprised to see it from either side here, just because it's such a gamble with teams like this. DSU going for another 5-stack. It hasn't worked out so far in these games, but it definitely secures safety. It means there's no way any one of us are going to get caught out alone because we're all together. But it's kind of pointless just because NDSU not looking for anything, just doing a standard 5-point, making it so you'll never catch us off guard because we see everywhere you could come from. So this will be the time Gragas has to back in order to catch the first wave in the top lane. And you see Crimson walk back to the mid lane. As for itemization, I'm kind of surprised to see the Doran's Blade purchase here from Sacred, just because I think against a superior range champion like Xayah, you might want more healing. So I was expecting a longsword with 3 potions. But it's just a minor nitpick. Maybe he knows something I don't. Maybe he's confident the Omnivamp from Doran's Blade can get him through Xayah poke, which is a safe gamble. Both junglers starting in their bottom side. Again, fairly traditional. But I think it definitely shows that they're both posturing towards this top side early game, trying to protect Gragas and or kill Gragas. Because the sooner Darius can get that first blood, the sooner he can take the game into his own hands. Not much can happen here right at level 2. But with Crimson immediately getting that big shove right up there, Maokai could look for something. But Crimson spots him. So he backs off to his turret. Definitely not wanting to get caught out there. DSU takes the bush control in the bottom lane. And as usual, the Darius is going to be the person pushed up. Darius is going to be the person in control, loud and in charge as per usual. But this is what I was talking about with the safety of Gragas. He's so far range that there's not much threat there. In the mid lane, we see fairly even poke here from Cassiopeia and Annie. They're both going to be slowly chipping each other down. But Annie definitely takes the tempo of the lane with her stun up. Xayah building a wave here with Alistar, looking to try and crash into DSU's tower, maybe around the time Maokai gets back down there. NDSU should definitely be looking for these short trades because just they have the healing advantage with Alistar passive. But if they do anything less than an even trade, it's not going to be worth it for them just because it gives pressure to the aggressive lane of Samira Rel. Not really contesting each other's CS here at all, which is interesting to me with 2 engaged supports. Gragas trying to keep Darius away from him, just barely being out of the range of Q. And Xayah has to give up some farm here just because Bruja is zoning her off, which is very smart from him. Bold moves from Fuyu here. And we see a bit of an all-in here in the bot lane. The action all got started at once, conveniently. And we definitely see Flash's trade and a first blood to go in the top lane. Gank comes down on Crimson in the mid lane, but I think he's safe here. He looks for Maokai, forcing a flash out of him, losing a flash in return, and it's a 1-for-1 in the mid lane. Wow, that's a lot of flashes right off the bat in the early game. And it's still 2 for 2. Extremely even. This game still in anyone's hands here. But with Darius getting a first blood on Gragas that early, Fuyu got a little bit too ambitious there, going for an in-your-face trade, which didn't quite work out. Just didn't get out in time. Didn't flash. The Darius E got a little greedy. But Gragas is so safe that he definitely could avoid a super powerful snowball from Darius. He's just going to have to give up the prospect of winning lane here. Dragon has just spawned, and you see both junglers start to position themselves on the bottom side, but Maokai has to back just because of the health disadvantage. And with Gragas having the bigger wave, even being down that early kill, he has level 6, has the current, currently in control up there. As is DSU in the bot lane, just having that kind of advantage that Rel can bring with a powerful engage. Jarvan starts Dragon by himself. Crimson comes down to assist, but it's going to be hard for NDSU to figure out even what's happening here, which is why you see Maokai just doing his wolves like he doesn't suspect anything. This is a sneaky play from DSU, and I like it. And that is a big uh-oh for NDSU. Just almost completely even CS all around. Crimson has a slight advantage in the mid lane. Oh, wow. And we see Fuyu get a massive outplay in the top lane, ulting Darius back into his turret and getting a super clean solo kill. Rel and Jarvan moving together into NDSU's Raptor Pit, looking for a gank on Annie. And in the meantime, they'll just be taking these Raptors. Annie has suspicions that something's going on, so she places a ward down in the Raptor Pit and catches them. But with Maokai still on his blue side, there's not much they can do to stop that. Jarvan having Iron Spike Whip makes it so that he does that camp extremely quickly. So, with the Rift Herald coming up very soon, and Maokai needing to clear his bottom waves, or bottom camps, you could definitely see another objective go for DSU here, as Crimson has to teleport into the mid lane to not lose too much CS. You see Stormstar is playing Annie very conservatively, having his stun up almost all the time, just trying to make it so that Crimson can't engage on him. Maokai drops down an ambitious ult, which is blocked by Sacred's W. Wow. It's the kind of thing you only think about when you're playing Samira, but yeah, being able to block any projectile in the game, super powerful, and makes it so that Maokai wastes his ult. And honestly, with seeing that big cooldown go down, I would expect Jarvan to start the Rift Herald, which he does. Yep, that's very smart from DSU, especially seeing that Crimson has the advantage in the mid lane and top lane is even. I think it's a bit of psychological manipulation from DSU here. All of the times, everyone on DSU's team has made a big stink about the objectives, making it very clear that they're going to get them, and now they're sneaking them. So they're throwing NDSU off their game here, breaking their usual patterns. Fuyu going for an aggressive Grog Assault, just looking to get damage and maybe look for something ambitious right before they go for this Rift Herald dive. Crimson's here to support, so I would say it's almost a guaranteed kill if they play it properly. Fuyu shoving the wave as best he can. Darius looks to fight him really quick while he tries to loop around to avoid DSU's engage, but they catch him out. And he goes down with little contest. That kill goes straight into Crimson's pockets. And now they look for Maokai. Forcing him out of his own jungle, that gives them the right to take his camps. all your goods are forfeit. And Maokai can only toss a sapling in there, try and stop them, politely asking them to stop with that sapling, but DSU takes the blue buff. With the next dragon up in 1 minute, I'm expecting Sacred and Bruja to back here, just to get as much gold as they can right before surely a fight breaks out around this. But they decide to secure vision before doing any of that. Maybe they feel like they can have that tempo just because of how the game is currently flowing in a positive state for them. Maokai finds himself closer to the soon spawning dragon than Jarvan, but he could definitely still make it down there after he clears this red buff. DSU might also just look to trade this objective, as it's just a cloud dragon, and look for more plays and plates top. Anything can happen here. Crimson picking a fight with Maokai here. Forces a flash out right before the dragon spawns. You'll love to see that. I think we'd all like to see Crimson shove the wave here to gain more prio for this dragon while Jarvan still makes his way down. And we see Sacreds to begin to do that, even if it takes some damage. Jarvan and Rel slowly making their way down to the Cloud Dragon. They are looking for it, using the advantage that they got earlier. And we see the scanners come down, and a quick engage from NDSU. Looks like it's going their way. And in bad news for DSU, Jarvan also has to flash, but it keeps him alive. Bruja tries to take back the advantage with a powerful flash engage. Looks like it's not going to turn into much until Jarvan completely commits with the Cataclysm. A bold play for 1/3 health, but it works out as Maokai goes down. Traded for Bruja. Sacred ults. Manages to push them out. Crimson goes for a pretty bold dive here. Don't think it's going to work out for him. Such is life. But with that bold play, it secures the second dragon of the game for DSU. They are on very good pace to get Soul, which should be great news for them. Looking at the items here, it looks mostly sided for DSU's lanes, except for bot lane, where the minor CS advantage Xayah has led to her getting Mythic first. And with no objectives coming up anytime soon, we could really look for lane ganks here. Jarvan and Maokai are both fairly powerful at this point in the game. And wow. Solid mechanics shown from NDSU's substitute support. Just a clean Alistar combo, keeping them away from the wave. Clearing vision retroactively after the dragon fight. NDSU just trying to take river prio here. Maybe posturing for a mid lane or bot lane gank. As Jarvan just continues his clear. And that's the difference in playstyle that leads to the about 20 CS lead that Tenkai's has over NDSU. He just chooses to continue farming, as all of his lanes don't seem very gankable. Both junglers in their top side looking to try and get this second Rift Herald, or at least prio for it, because that's really the big one. Even though plates are down, it's massive tower damage, and if you can take a tower with the second Rift Herald, it definitely supplies you with prio and a little bit of gold. As we see Crimson get minorly caught out here, I don't think it'll be the death of him. No, he does manage to get out. Oh, caught by the Maokai ult. Tibbers doesn't quite have the damage yet. Perhaps if Annie had died under turret, Tibbers gets that attack speed boost. Maybe he could take out Crimson in that case, but that would make it a 1-for-1. As NDSU just looks for the second Rift Herald. Tank guys looking to try and maybe steal it out from under their nose here, but it's a very contested position for him. He's probably going to have to die for it if he goes for it. He goes in a bit early, but he gets it. Oh, and a very smart Cataclysm to get closer to the eye. We see a full-on fight breakdown here. Tank guys did have to flash to secure the eye, or to secure the Rift Herald, but he does end up dying for it. As this fight looks fairly NDSU-sided, Sacred puts down an ult, trying to change the tide here, and it looks like he's going to do it. In an amazing play from Crimson and Sacred combined, they put down so much damage that even losing 2 members of their team that early on, and all of their tank stats essentially, they bring it back for themselves. That's the kind of engage power that you see even post-mortem. Brujah was able to put NDSU in such a bad position that even though they started out with that big advantage, they lost anyway, just because of how much damage they were able to put down on them in that disadvantageous position. Brujah disconnects. We're in a bit of a predicament here. Probably just some signal issues over here in the Trojan Center. This could last any amount of time, really. But hopefully it'll be resolved rather quickly. As for the state of the game right now, we can take this. And we're back. Never mind. I don't get to monologue. Yep. The game has a bit of a bug out after a pause. It just happens in these customs. That's all right. I'm sure we'll get back into the game. Do I have time to monologue? I don't have time to monologue. I'll never forgive Brujah for depriving me of my speech. So, as that brief interlude and fight conclude, we see the Mountain Dragon begin to spawn. About 1 minute left on that, and both teams ebb their way on down to the bottom side of the map. NDSU desperate to try and take this one. They've lost every objective up to this point, so they're really desperate to get this one to stop DSU's positive progress. But with the second Rift Herald in DSU's hands, if they want to contest it heavily, they're going to have to trade a tower for it. That's just the way it is. As we see just normal skirmishes, we see the power of Maokai around these objectives, just constantly tossing saplings over that give him almost unlimited intel. And every member of both teams is down here. This is really emphasizing the power of a dragon. Especially when one team has all of them at this point. The tempo threat is so severe that everyone drops everything to go get that, even when it means these massive waves, top, bot, and mid, all get lost. And DSU naturally having a superior position here just because of the nature of being red side. They try and pull the Mountain Dragon out, which is difficult because of that massive wall that happens when Mountain Soul occurs. The Maokai ult coming down, and a big engage coming down from Brujah. Follows it up with an immediate anti-death and an ult from Sacred. And the Dragon, another one to DSU, followed up by a pretty crazy fight in favor of DSU. They're just running them down all the way back in between their turrets. And Jarvan trying to follow it up a little bit more. I think he's looking to drop the Rift Herald. And Xayah, I mean, if he does that, which I'm assuming he will, Xayah, I mean, that would be the final chapter of her story. There it goes. Darius and Alistar are trying to save her, but looks like she's all out of cards to play. As Cassiopeia finds herself behind her, she has to flash. And with a combination of flash ult, Xayah exercises her safety advantage to get out. I didn't expect that. Very well played from NDSU. But that does mean that they really have to try and stop this Rift Ult from getting a second charge. They manage it. Just smart positioning there, stacking in the bush. As we see a teleport to the top lane, Crimson sees that, hey, everyone's in the bot lane. Why don't I go head up here and threaten this turret? Just before Baron spawns. So we're about to see most of the pressure on the map flow towards the top lane. Darius shows up to try and stop Crimson from taking that turret. As they start to look for something here, and they catch Alistar out in a pretty big engage. Even through all of his tank stats, 3 big CC spells, and the decent damage that those 3 combined can bring down will take him down and secure the first tier in the top lane from NDSU. That gives NDSU the confidence they need to start this Baron. Even though no member of NDSU besides just the support has gone down, they feel like they have the tempo and damage advantage to just posture for this. NDSU not taking this lightly, doing their very best to threaten it, and he at least gets the blue buff. But with Brujah posturing like that, they'd be lucky to even have the time to get into the Baron pit. I'm expecting this Maokai ult to be blocked. It is. And Brujah looks for it. They do leave the Baron, even if it gets most of its health back, to get that pick. Annie's such a powerful champion right now that people are willing to just drop the Baron to get an Annie pick. Imagine that. And there it goes. Every objective in this game has gone to DSU so far, and an impressive macro showing from Tankies. He's really showing that he, at his core, cares about the late game, as we see a big fight come down here under NDSU's second tier, and it once again goes in the favor of DSU. We do lose two members, sorry, to that second tier's damage, but I would definitely say, as a flash stun Tibbers comes down from Annie, that's definitely a big play, and it's going to cost Tankies his life, possibly Crimson's. There it is, yeah. And Tibbers runs down Gragas here. It's like a horror movie. Well, now we see why they were willing to drop everything for the Annie. That's, I mean, that's just the power of her at the moment. Obviously, she's always been able to flash Tibbers into a stun, but her damage at the moment is so ridiculous that is just a guaranteed death for anyone except Brujah or Fuyu. And we see DSU take about a 9k gold lead here. Just under. Sacred has started taking jungle camps just to boost his progression a bit further. Samira at 3 items becomes particularly strong, fairly unkillable. Even at her low health, she just has so much lifesteal and so much backup from Brujah that picking her out will be pretty difficult. Once again, NDSU has to contest this Dragon Spawn, even more than before, just because of Soul Point. Even if they are this behind, even if they're losing this badly, they have to go for the Hail Mary play. Maokai probably going to hold his ult this time until he sees the Samira W come down. You know, fool me thrice. And Brujah goes for a massive flash over the wall, followed up by Jarvan Cataclysm and Cassiopeia ult. Sacred follows it up with his own for the massive damage finish off. And that is 2 doubles. A double and a triple for DSU, leading to a complete ace and Mountain Soul. Yeah. I mean, I think we can all feel it, but NDSU's hopes of winning are pushing up daisies right now. But anything's possible, of course. It's you know, the Baron buff is gone though, so we don't see such a powerful siege from DSU in the wake of that battle. It's still going to be enough to get this second tier, possibly this inhibitor turret if we don't see too much contesting from NDSU. We don't. And in a super impressive display of coordination during that dragon fight, you see basically all of DSU's CC and trapping team abilities be used not just at once, but in sequence, layering them so that they're the most effective they can be. And only then does Sacred ult when everyone's at their most vulnerable, when nobody can pick him off when he's in that vulnerable position. And only then, at the end of all of that, does Gragas ult to finish it off, scatter them, and make it so that, you know, that's the perfect moment to Gragas ult there. So that wasn't just a super impressive play from any member of DSU. That was a super impressive play from just all 5 of them at once. It was like one guy was controlling 5 keyboards there. Baron returning to the field in about 90 seconds here. DSU usually is a conservative ender here. They're looking to make it so that they have a 100% chance of victory, and that will come with this Baron. Okay, it comes down, catches Fuyu and Bruja, but that forces most of NDSU's team away from their own blue side jungle, giving DSU a big vision and tempo advantage when it comes to this next Baron spawn. They're probably looking to take this inhibitor before they start it, though, just to make it so NDSU is more preoccupied. DSU can't quite manage to get it just because everyone in NDSU is up there, and the Baron is almost up. So they're grouping up in the jungle, trying to back up Crimson because he's minorly caught out here. The ult comes down, Cataclysm, and yep. Wow, a very big knock-up from Alistar there, but it ends up in Sacred getting a triple. And another ace for DSU. They're going to look to take this inhibitor. I don't think they quite have the power to end this game right here and now. So they'll settle for their towers and their inhibitors. And when everyone else is back up, they'll once again start to posture for either the dragon or the Baron or the end. And I am thoroughly impressed here with DSU's performance. They had a little bit of a warm-up game in game 1, but then they really picked it up in match 2, and especially in match 3. Bruja gets a little bit ambitious, ends up dying for a brief engage here. And with Gragas ult almost up, no, not quite. DSU getting a little bit greedy here for 2 inhibitors. They maybe should have just gone for one or the other, but that's all right. I think even in this 3v5 scenario, they can at least prevent NDSU from getting the Baron or getting any major turrets. Sacred once again clearing camps, trying to get his final item on the board. Same with Crimson. Crimson obviously not having to buy boots on Cassiopeia. Surprisingly built a Gargoyle Stone Plate, now looking for his 5th item. Sacred just barely not being able to reach Alistar with his Q. And now with everyone on DSU up, I'm sure they're looking to Baron. And they start. NDSU, pretty sure they've started the Baron, but not 100% confident on it as they don't have any vision in the pit. And they lose it before they can react. Alistair goes in, goes a bit too ham, doesn't have the backup from his team. Jarvan manages to catch out several members of NDSU, and I think that'll be it. Sigurd heads into the fray once again to try and pick up some kills, manages to get them, as Jarvan consistently puts up pressure. And that is a double and a single, resulting in the final ace of this game for DSU. And the 2-1 victory for DSU in match 2 and 3. GG's indeed. I've said it once, I've said it twice, I've said it 57 times in the course of this game, but I am super impressed with DSU in all of these games, especially match 3. I feel like they were really coordinated, especially towards the end there with that Mountain Dragon fight right around 25 minutes. As for drafts, I think DSU was solid all the way through. I think they've practiced their drafting multiple times. They managed to keep very consistent with how they play the drafts of each game. They've mostly stuck to the meta with a fair mixture of their own comfort picks in the fray. As for NDSU, very strong showing match 1, very coordinated with the Sejuani and the Blitzcrank. Match 2, they definitely put up a good fight. They managed to show themselves off as a match for DSU. And then match 3 went a little poorly for them, but it was pretty clear that it was just a couple mistakes that got out of control, and DSU was super coordinated. So I don't blame NDSU at all for fumbling that third game, and they still played better than you'd expect. So I'm very impressed with all players all around. Super pleased with the result. Obviously, DSU remains undefeated. Nay, I say unbeatable this season. You love to see it from DSU. I believe we have a post-game interview coming up with a player from DSU. We haven't quite decided who it'll be yet, but they'll be coming on set fairly soon, and we'll get to answer some questions about how these games went. We'll be taking a brief break, and then we will see you all then with an exclusive interview.